Why, hello, Internet! My name is Prunk, and today we're diving into Power of the Duelists. This was released back in August in 2006, and. Did you hear that? Okay, it must have been just the noise. Anyway, today we're going to be fixing the best worst archetype aliens. Oh, and Spacians too. I mean, but seriously, aliens, guys, come on! Sure, the Spacians are technically aliens too, but they look like they were drawn by some anime protagonist as a kid. But these guys, they are the real deal. Little gray men just ready to probe. Woohoo! Sign me up. The funny thing is, this deck is actually playable as it is. But why settle for playable when we can make it meta? Um, these little gray guys just deserve more, and they can be so much better. It's not like I have any biases here. No, no, no. But they weren't meta competitive. They were barely casually competitive. But I love this archetype, and I am gonna do something that I don't normally do, and I want to make this a meta contender for this format. And I think we can do that without changing too much. So we're gonna play with this. Now, before we get into the cool stuff, though, let's talk about the lame Destiny Hero cards. Uh, Funny enough, I actually like the D heroes in this set. For example, Dasher actually saw some competitive play, which is a win in my book. And with the fixes I'll be making, Dogma could actually be a lot more viable as well. He's still not amazing, but he's playable, and that's what we're here for. Same with Double Dude. He's a playable card and unique and backed with support with like the Clock Tower Prison that we just fixed. So like a lot of our changes that we did last episode, if you didn't see that, you may want to go check that one out. That really does apply to a lot of these D heroes and actually lets them be a playable archetype. That this is just new support, really supporting that stuff. So I'm not going to touch D heroes because honestly, they're fixed with just some of the cards that we released last set. And let's get on to the cool stuff. Let's talk about the aliens. Now, at this point, Yugioh is just still chaos ruling the format. And if it wasn't chaos, then it was like Stein OTK or Stein Monarchs or just literally Stein everything. Uh, Konami really kind of dropped the ball with this card, huh? So if we're dealing with this toxic format of Steins and Monarchs, then I'm making aliens cool, okay? And we'll talk about the Spacians too, I guess. If you guys really like Jaden, we'll get to him. But first, it's the aliens, okay? We get to do what I want. It's my show. Okay, so why did aliens fail? We got to talk about A counters. These are a core of the alien strategy, and yes, there are some good alien cards individually. Yu-Gi-Oh! Has tried to make counter decks work before, but this is just like its third attempt, and we're overdue for an actually good one. And aliens do it pretty well. They just need a few extra little tweaks. But here's how A counters work. They give a minus 300 attack and defense per counter on a monster, which is pretty solid, but you do have to have an alien monster currently on the field in order to actually get that benefit. Otherwise, the counters don't actually do anything. That's kind of more of a game rule issue. A counter should be a core mechanic that just says if you have an A counter, you lose 300 attack and defense. Like, no exceptions. Whether I have an alien on the field or not, telling you that they're there, you still have those counters, and those counters should always do something to your cards. And I think that alone is enough to kind of make counter decks a lot more viable. And we can use the same approach to like Venoms, and like I guess we can technically do it for the magic counters too, but we're going to focus on the alien stuff for now. Let's look at some of the boss monsters because they're actually pretty cool. Alien Mother is a pretty cool boss monster. It's a 1 tribute, and when it destroys a monster with an A counter on it, you can special summon that monster to your side of the field. That's pretty solid, right? I mean, that's an instant and extra swing that you're going to be able to take somebody's monster back. So, like, if you're 2300 and you swing into Jirai Gumo, who's at 22, now you can get an extra swing on this guy. Awesome. And then we get, like, Cosmic Horror Gangria. Not so much of a good boss monster. This card tries to be a brain control alien, but it's just kind of underwhelming. First off, we gotta treat it as an alien card, so we're gonna rename it Alien Horror Gangriel. The whole brainwashing thing is cool, but it definitely needs some support. And Brainwashing Beam is already a Snatch Steal's trap card, so let's tweak it up a little bit. You select a monster with an A counter on your opponent's side of the field, take control of it. Each of your end phases remove one A counter from that monster. If all counters are removed, that monster is destroyed, and then destroy this card. So let's rework this Cosmic Horror Gangry. First, I'm turning this guy into a level 6 monster, but overall, here's the fix. while you control an alien, you can discard this card from your hand to place one A counter on all face-up monsters your opponents control. If this card is tribute summoned by a monster with an A counter, you can take control of one monster your opponent controls. This does a couple of things. First off, it spreads out A counters to help your engine get built and growing. And then it also allows you to get more opportunity to take control of other opponents' monsters. Whether you have Alien Mother already on the field, now they have an A counter on it, so now you can snatch steal that kind of card, or playing the Brainwashing Beam, which is going to let you take it away because now it has an alien card on it. Like, there's just so many different unique things that this card does now. And if this is tribute summoned, you still also get that extra bonus of stealing a card too. So this card can either be used kind of as a hand trap to set up plays, or it can be used as a tribute summon if the A counters are already established on the field. And we can keep this card relatively weak, like 2000 is completely fine or something along those lines, because then you're going to be stealing opponents' cards away. And honestly, from an opponent side of point of view, it does feel bad to see your stuff constantly being taken away from you. But at the same time, in order for them to actually achieve that, they are going to need cards like alien counter cards to actually put them onto your opponent. So it is a lot more resource intensive. And I mean, Snatch Steal was legal. Like, I think it's fine. So if you can just Snatch Steal one of my cards for basically the cost of the Snatch Steal card, where I have to discard a big monster, which means he's probably dead in my hand. So I have to discard that card and then play a trap card in order to, or I need to beat over something then with this alien card. There's just so many. I need to do this, this, and this to steal your card where you just play Snatch Steal. I think we're fine. We're at even playing field right now. So by adding that discard effect, I think we can just spread out the A counters a lot easier, and this deck can already get their engine rolling really well. I do know that there are a lot of really good cards like Plant Pollutant Virus that come out in the future that does apply A counters to everything that comes out when it's on the field, which is really nice. It's like a 3-turn just little give A counters to. So if this deck can be really viable, I think, in the future with just some of these changes already. But let's talk about Alien Hunter and Alien Gray. Alien Hunter currently is just a monster that attacks twice if it destroys a monster with an A counter by battle. And that's fine, but it's kind of boring. So here's the new version that I kind of want to implement. When this monster destroys a monster with an A counter, summon an Alien Gray from your deck to your opponent's side of the field face down, giving your opponent a monster. Okay, interesting. So let's talk about Alien Gray, who's kind of getting a rework as well. Originally, it just places a 1 A counter on a monster, but now flip. Place 1 A counter on all monsters on the field. When this card is sent to the graveyard, draw 1 card. So this card now allows you to get an automatic draw, because keep in mind, if this card is going to the player's graveyard who summoned this, is going to get a free draw out of this thing, which makes it pretty good. And it's making it a card that defends your opponent, but I'm automatically going to get a draw off of this card one way or the other. So I'm giving my opponent some resources, but I'm also getting that resource back. So whether they want to use that as a tribute summon to deal with some thing on their board, or they are just using this as like a big beater, because I actually do think that this card could be like an 1,000 attack beat stick, and I think it would be pretty fine. That way your opponent can flip this card face up. Yeah, everything is A counters, but hey, this guy's now at 1,000 attacks. I can hit you and do some damage at least back to try and make this card more of a high risk draw card. I think that's really sweet. But this card, when you do manage to flip it, it's giving A counters to everything else, which means that some of your cards that are aliens already on your side of the field now have these A counters on it for the first time. And so it makes the kind of tributing off like your Cosmic Horror a little bit better as well, because now it's easier to get A counters on your side of the field to actually get this bonus effect, which I like as well. And finally, let's talk about crop circles. Right now, this card's kind of a mess, but I've got the fix. The original effect is you send monsters to your graveyard to search an alien monster equal to the level. Alien monster of equal level. If you fail, you take 2,000 damage. Having to really know what's in your deck is interesting, because you can't just send your cards for cost or something and then just not find a search. You have to have an option. So not only would you basically lose the game by sending your monsters to the grave and then burning yourself for 2,000 if this card doesn't go off. So let's make this a little bit more playable and not as high risk. I mean, you should know what's in your deck, and you should know what you need to search for. But just in case, let's play this out. Send a monster with A counters to the graveyard to add a level 4 or lower alien monster from your deck to your hand. If you do, you cannot attack directly this turn. So this is going to be a trap card still. And this is a removal slash searching card. And it is searching out specific aliens. It is searching out your little aliens, such as your Greys, your Warriors. So I think this card is giving that deck a little bit more removal, which we are going to get another alien removal card in the next set, which is really strong. I think it's like Mysterious something. Um, Mysterious something. And I think giving this deck a little bit more removal is pretty nice, but also just getting you to your search targets, being able to search out your future synchro card in the far future when they get their synchro. God, that's when this deck is so good. I think that this entire engine can be a really fun, really competitive. I think there's a lot of these really good tweaks aren't completely out of the blue and like completely overshadowing everything that we've seen in the game so far. Keep in mind, everything is done with the mindset of 2006 at the moment. So this is good power creep, but I think this is a strong archetype that can actually put a real dent into the meta. I'm excited to kind of see a competitive archetype that isn't just good stuff or chaos. And so I really wanted to make these guys a little bit better. I may have overboard myself a little bit. I am a little biased because this is one of my favorite like classic archetypes, but I don't think anything I did was too crazy. Was I too generous? Let me know in the comments. What would you have changed? I'd love to hear it. But I think overall aliens are fixed, and I don't think they're broken. I don't even know if these changes would make them meta, but man, are they competitive. Like with this, I think these core changes makes this deck extremely competitive for its time. It still has its drawbacks. You still need the setup. It's not as good as just dropping Chaos Sork and other Chaos cards onto the field and playing just good stuff. Man, you got a strategy and you have a fun engine to play with. All right, so let's talk about the Neo-Spacians. This archetype, well beloved in the anime, is one of those that just it should feel iconic, but it really falls short in terms of competitive and viability. But you know the rule of Fixing Yugioh channel, nothing is sacred. So let's dive in and see if we can breathe some new life into these little guys. First, let's break down the Neo-Spacians and their supporting cards. There's the Crystalists, which are kind of like the baby Neo-Spacians. The ones we get in like Power of the Duelist are like Crystalist Dolphin. And these guys are all just going to be basically level 2 monsters. Essentially, they all have a Lone Flyer Blossom effect when Neospace is on the field. That sounds good in theory, but in practice, it's just too slow. The recruiters are really being phased out at this point, and you're not going to really waste your normal summon just to get a possible like Neos fusion. It just doesn't work. The Neospacians are actually decent normal summons with unique effects, but ultimately they serve as fusion materials for their fusion bosses. The problem is the Neo fusion monsters are all contact fusions, which is good because you don't need polymerization, but at the end of the turn, they get shuffled back into the deck, into your extra deck, unless Neospace is on the field. This leaves the deck very, very vulnerable. And so it's a pretty easy fix. A lot of people are saying, well, we can just make it so it's not the end phase where they get shuffled in, or they don't get shuffled in at all. They're just on the field. You committed your resources. I actually feel like that misses like the point of the deck and a lot of the theme. If you're just going to summon them onto the field, what's the difference between these and the normal heroes? I do actually like that aspect that they are forced to go back to the extra deck at the end of the turn. They did their job, they came out, they are unneoed fusioned afterwards. What I really want to do is just turn this into a positive. And so I think we can look at all of the teenagers versions, the normal summon characters, and add this line of text. When a face-up Neospacian fusion monster is returned to the extra deck by its own effect, special summon this card from the graveyard. This then brings in some recursion back and it doesn't leave you completely vulnerable. Yeah, you still got this squishy guy on the board, but hey, this is better than an open field. Now we're not going -3 in card advantage just because you fusion summoned a monster and then losing out on it. No, you're actually getting something back on the board. So you play out your fusion, does what he needs to do, and then at the end of the turn, he goes away. You bring back baby version from the grave. It's just you're cycling a lot of things, and it kind of feels good because you're actually moving your hands and getting involved, and you're getting to do different combos. That feels pretty neat. I would like to word it in a way so that way, if you have multiple fusions in the graveyard, you can't just spam fusions them all out. I would want something to miss timing. I'm not sure how to properly force it so it doesn't miss timing. We don't want them to be chained. It has to be say like when a card is fusion summoned, do this immediately or something along those lines to make sure that you can't just spam out a bunch of the little guys that are in the graveyard already. And by doing that, we can really focus in on Neospace, which this card is crucial in the anime. So let's give it some love. First off, I want to keep the 500 attack. I do think that's completely fine. So new effect would be just keep the 500 attack. When a fusion monster is returned from the extra deck by its own effect, you may special summon one Elemental Hero Nails from your graveyard that was used in a contact fusion. What that means is now you don't have to have this card, or you never really had to have this card on the field in order to contact fuse, but if you do, you actually get the extra reward of being able to keep Neos, the big body, back on the field, so you don't have to tribute summon him again, or you don't have to bring him out in some weird way. Next turn, if he manages to survive, then you can normal summon a different Neos, or if you're able to protect him, now you're able to contact fusion again and repeat this whole process because you played the feel spell, you got your baby out of the grave, you're not completely behind in card advantage. I think a lot of these changes are just really good. Again, I don't really even know if this is going to be competitive or not, but this is at least sounding like it's a really fun archetype to play. It can be a protect the tower kind of thing with Elemental Hero Neos. He's back on the field. I need to be able to summon my baby guys and come back out with my cool fusion guards so that way they get cool effects. And at the end of my turn, protect the tower again. I think the recursion that this deck and these changes can really offer can make this, again, a much more competitive build. There's so many powerful decks at this time. I don't know if this is enough to kind of put it on a competitive stage, but this is all giving them a good identity and allowing them to be played in a way that is just super fun. And I think that's like the key part of the game. You want to have fun while playing your card games, right? Cool archetypes, cool deck themes. That is what Yu-Gi-Oh! Inspires to be, and I think they missed it both with Aliens and Neo-Spacians. And I think these few changes, not to like the core mechanics, but just those little bit of extra line changes, can really improve these cards and make them more fun. And who knows, they probably would have sold a lot better too. The last thing I think is just fixing the Crystallis cards. Another issue was really just Crystallis are very specific. You summon out Crystallis Dolphin, you get to tribute it, and you get Dolphin back out. You get the normal Neo-Spacian Dolphin on the field. You do it for Flare Scarab and Crystallis Flare Scarab. Like, then you get that one. Like, it's just, you get Neomole. Like, all of these guys, they're cute artwork, sure. But realistically, nobody's putting these into their decks like that because it's just such a specific recruiter. It doesn't feel worth playing. You're better off just normal summoning and searching them out in different ways. So the rework I really want to focus on is this card counts as 2 tributes for Elemental Hero Neos. When this card is used as a tribute summon, you may special summon one Neo-Spacian monster from your deck. So I think I just want to call this card just Neo-Spacian Crystallis. Don't have to put a specific monster in there. You don't have to put your specific babies. But having one specific card that, when tribute summoned, you are able to special summon a Neo-Spacian from your deck, that is another good way of being able to contact fuse out. So if this thing can survive for a turn, you can tribute summon it, get your big Neos out, search your deck for a specific Neo-Spacian that you need for the situation that you're in, and contact fuse. If you have your fusion field spell, you play that down on the field, give your guy a big boost, do what you need to do on the field, and then at the end of the turn, you send back your fusion summon to combo off and bring back Neos, bring back another one from the grave. Like, you just did all these cool different things, and now the Crystallis actually enables you to play and be a lot more consistent on the situations that you need. Jaden is cool because he is so adaptable in different situations, and he's always getting the right hero at the right time when he needs it. That doesn't work in Yu-Gi-Oh! We don't get the right hero, we don't get the right card when we need to. We have to play cards that are consistent because we want to be able to do what our deck is designed to do. And I think a card like this Crystallis now is doing exactly what our combos can actually be and how we can really get this deck to work consistently. Now, are these changes making Neo-Spacians meta? Probably not. It just makes them archetype, which is the whole focus on this show. We've turned a slow, vulnerable deck into something that can make some solid power plays, and we've really enhanced the synergy between all the different cards. By making the fusion monsters send back to deck and then bringing back your resources, having us combo off with the Crystallis cards, I think this deck is actually pretty competitive. Power of the Duelist does give us a couple different archetypes. They give us some support like Dinos and more Roids. Roids in particular are very interesting to me. The boss monsters are fine in theory, but the overall deck just doesn't have the right synergy to make it viable in competitive strategy. So we are going to dive a little bit deeper into how we can fix them. If you remember, which I'll be impressed if you do, it's been a while, in Cybernetic Revolution video, we did talk about the struggles of the Roid archetype. Originally, the deck had a major identity crisis with weak, unsynergistic monsters like Steam Gyroid, a level 6 fusion monster with 2200 attack that didn't offer much beyond its stats. And then there was the UFO Roid line, which had some potential, but the high tribute summoning requirements and weak stats just made it difficult to use effectively. My fix for UFO Roid was just making it a recruiter and maybe making it like a 3 or 4. It is already a recruiter, sorry, but making it a like normal summon recruiter just so you know they could actually search out what you need to do. And honestly, like at that stage of the game, the recruiter engine stuff still was viable. People were still playing Mystic Tomato and a few other things. Like it wasn't the best things you can be doing, but at that time, I think recruiter still works. There's again definitely being phased out at this point of Yu-Gi-Oh for sure. So, to solve all the Roid issues, I suggested a self-sustaining mechanic where Roid monsters could protect and support each other from through discard effects. So that's all in our cybernetic, but just to give us a quick recap, Gyroid would have graveyard search effect upon summoning. Jetroid would let you return trap cards from the graveyard when you're to your hand when discarded. Cycloid would boost the attack of monsters when discarded. Patroid or Patroid would get improved stat line when you and reveal your opponent's face down cards upon being discarded. So they all had different things. The setup helped the Roid archetypes just giving themselves some utility, and I appreciate that. It helps out the weaker monsters, like Cyrus. You know how I feel about him. So in this set, we finally got Ambulance Roid, and I mentioned him earlier, but what he basically does is when a Roid monster is added from your graveyard to your hand, except during the damage step, you can special summon it. So let's say Ambulance Roid is already on the field, and you normal summon Gyroid, the new Gyroid, I should say. Gyroid's effect would trigger, allowing you to add a Roid monster from your graveyard to your hand. This, in turn, activates Ambulance Roid's effect. You now get to special summon that monster that you picked. You have an extra body on the field, which is hopefully allowing you to set up for a big fusion, or, hey, a limited removal power bond breakout move. I mean, that's pretty cool. It definitely makes the mechs a little bit scarier. It gives Cyrus something a little bit more powerful than he probably can handle. But I think this is a cool little strat. We have the whole thing about recurring and getting out multiple cards out on the field. And with Power Bond, I think that this can be a pretty solid big swing at your opponent and possibly game winning. Well, hopefully if you play Power Bond. But because we're now just reinforcing the fact that all these Roid cards are working together for the greater good, they are adding cards to your hand, they are discarding yourself for protection, they are rescuing things out of the graveyard and putting it back onto the field. This is all giving this archetype a much deserved identity. Okay, well, maybe not deserved, but it's giving them an identity, which is, fun. So let's look at Rescue Roid next. It's one of the weaker links in the Roid archetypes due to its high level and tribute summoning requirements, but here's the fix. When a Roid monster you control is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can turn that monster to your hand. You can control this face-up card on the field to activate that and resolve this effect. So the change I propose is lowering Rescue Roids until level 4 again, reducing its stats, making it easier to summon, and just more useful in your combos. By having this being a normal summon, you can basically run another Roid into a monster, and then this card instantly being able to pop it back up into your hand. And then if you have Ambulance Roid, then it special summons it again. So I like a lot of this. It's just more recursion, more getting your resources back, and it's really reinforcing some of the changes that we did in Cybernetic Revolution. All these changes just give the Roids a self-sustaining engine that just allows you to special summon and recur cards back to your hand back and forth. And it's not like any of these cards are crazy powerful. I mean, they can be because they're all machines. But I think this is enough to give this deck a really cool identity. So implementing a lot of the changes that we did from Cybernetic Revolution, it's like I had some of the stuff planned out in the future. Wink, wink. I always know what I'm doing. This is a good reason why you should subscribe, because if there's an archetype I talk about, these changes will be improved on just cards that come out in the future. We just have to tweak some of those sometimes. So Roids all have an identity. They're not just random cards slapped together. I consider this fixed. And now that I gave Cyrus a cool deck, I'm sure he's probably still going to suck and not actually learn how to play it. He is literally the worst duelist in history of Yu-Gi-Oh! This is a longer video than I thought it was going to be. We talked about the E-Heroes, or, well, Neo-Heroes. We talked about Aliens. We talked about Roids. Like, we got 3 good archetype supports here. I mean, well, we got 2 brand new ones and a really good archetype in the Roids, which actually, some of these changes make me want to try this deck out really well. But, hey, that's just us fixing Yu-Gi-Oh! I appreciate all the comments, guys. I appreciate all the support. Please like, comment, subscribe, do all the YouTube stuff. I will catch you all next time for the next one. If you want to see more, please do all those YouTubey things. Peace out. Bye.